2021 Columbus City Council meeting will now come to order. In compliance with the Open Meeting Act, Nebraska Revised Statute 84-1407, a current copy of this act is posted in the meeting room. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Bulkley.
Here.
Augustine Schulte. Here. Barr.
Here.
Hemer.
Here.
Jablonski.
Here.
Kreshaw.
Here.
Lohr.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Schilling.
Here.
Mayor Bulkley, the roll has been called. Sorry.
Our Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve our fellow citizens. Please give us your wisdom and guidance to make the proper decisions entrusted to this governmental body. May our conduct show respect, honor, and courtesy to each other, as well as to all our citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. If at any time during tonight's meeting anyone in our audience would like to speak to us, we'd ask that you please come forward, give your name, address, and we'd ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. With that, we've got a few housekeeping things to take care of this evening. We'll begin with the election of council president.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councilperson Augustine Schulte for president.
Second. We have a nomination of Councilwoman Augustine Schulte to be council president in a second. I'd ask for any further nominations. If none, I ask the motions to close the nominations.
Make a motion to close the nominations.
I'll second.
We have a motion to close the nominations. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Nominations closed. Ask for a motion to elect Councilwoman Augustine Schulte to serve as council president.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Council President.
Thanks for your confidence in me.
We'll then move on to appointment of council members to Public Finance, Judiciary and Personnel Committee and Public Property Safety and Works Committee.
Item 5A, council members John F. Lohr, Rich Jablonski, Beth Augustine Schulte, and Troy Hemer to the Public Finance, Judiciary, and Personnel Committee, and council members Charlie Barr, Dennis Kreshaw, J. Brent Roth, and Ron Schilling to the Public Property Safety and Works Committee.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the appointments to your council committees be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the appointments to the council committees. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to the consent agenda.
Item 6, consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a City Council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from consent status and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 6A, minutes of the November 15th, 2021 City Council meeting. Item 6B, minutes of the November 30th, 2021 Civil Service Commission meeting, certifying police officer candidates Kyle Blunk, Chelsea Reifert, and Minor Figaro Furland. Item 6C, reappointment of Chuck Fleeman, Brad Hansen, and John Shadle to the Board of Park Commissioners for 3-year terms. Item 6D, reappointment of Carrie Homolka and Jill Zaruba to the Americans with Disabilities Compliance Committee for 3-year terms. Item 6E, advertise for bids for lease of the North Wellfield property. Item 6F, service agreement with Electronic Engineering in the amount of $15,600 for installation and maintenance on fleet radios and emergency equipment for the police department. Item 6G, purchase of pickup from the state bid contract in the amount of $29,876 for the Water Utility Division. Item 6H, resolution number R21-151, approving the maintenance agreement number 8 with the Nebraska Department of Transportation from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022 for maintenance of the state highway system in the city limits. Item 6I, resolution number R21-152, approving the lease agreement with Sherilyn Drummond to maintain a firearm range facility for the police department. Item 6J, resolution number R21-154, authorizing payment of various improvement projects. And item 6K, payroll and bills on file. Mr. Mayor and Council, is there anything you would like removed from consent status?
Did you get the lease agreement taken care of?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move that the items on the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the items on the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to reports of council committees.
Item 12A, Committee of the Whole from December 6, 2021. Item 12A1, the ward redistricting.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Committee of the Whole redistricting be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ward redistricting as presented during the Committee of the Whole. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to new business.
Item 15A, quote from Electronic Contracting in the amount of $17,428.96 for installation of a hearing loop system for the new community building. This is 100% funded by the Columbus-Sertoma Club grant.
Move that the quote be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the quote for $17,428.96 for the hearing loop system, which is 100% funded by the Columbus-Sertoma Club, which is
I'm
awesome.
surprised that that wasn't put into the original bid, due to the fact, there's a lot of hearing problems out there that we have. And we have that in our church, and probably a lot of the other churches have the same thing, and it's tremendous for the hard of hearing people.
It'll
Well,
be a great
Sertoma Club,
asset.
this is the third project that we've done a looping system for. The senior center has it.
Oh, that's right.
The Wellness Center has it. It's a project that fits well with our mission of speech and hearing. Some of the money that we did receive from the Cattleman's Ball, which was a very successful fundraiser, was used for that as well. And then the International gave us some money as well. So I think it's a good project. I don't know about having it in the budget. I think it's one of those wants and needs, but certainly with an aging population, I think it's well-deserved, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to do that. So, and we can divide the room too. We got two. If the room's divided, then you have two separate hearings. So I think we did well with the quote that we got. So hopefully they come through with it.
Very good.
Definitely. It'll be a great addition.
Thank you to Saratoga.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Tolma. We have a motion and a second. I won't ask for comments because we already have them. And no, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 15B, quote from Geocom Incorporated in the amount of $15,843 for GIS services for the Joint Communications Center.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the quote from Geocom Inc. for GIS services be accepted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the quote from GeoCom for the GIS services for the Joint Communications Center. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 15C, the sole source quote from Hoffman Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $51,300 for the SCADA system upgrades at the wastewater treatment facility.
Mr. Mayor, I move the quote from Huffman Engineering Incorporated for SCADA system upgrades be accepted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the quote from Hoffman Engineering for the SCADA system upgrade at the wastewater treatment facility. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 15D, comments from the mayor and city council members. In compliance with the Open Meeting Act, no discussion may be held on this item.
Any council members with comments this evening? Yes, sir. Oh, let's start with Councilman Schilling.
I think it'll be advantageous for us to congratulate the Columbus High or the Lakeview High football team for their winning of the Class C state tournament. That gives Columbus a lot of good recognition, I think.
First time ever, isn't it, for him?
Well, this, in 30 years, yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
All right, Councilman Lohr.
I don't know whether you noticed it or not, but on a purchase of our pickup earlier on, the delivery date was 6 months down the road. That's a long time to wait for your pickup.
I think it's a fast time.
Yeah, in today's
Reality.
in today's world, that's the reality we're in.
Yeah.
Any other comments this evening? I have nothing.
Do you want to talk about the beam?
Oh, all righty. We have with us this evening a beam that is going to be put into our new community center. All council members are asked to sign, put their signature on the beam. We will then take the beam, and individual parties that have been a part of this process of this project will have the ability to sign this in the next day or two. And in a week or two, before it's put into the guts of our new community center. So I don't think all councilmen got it done yet, but I think before the night's over, please make sure we get over to sign the beam, and then it will be around for a couple more weeks for those interested parties that will be asked to sign also. Okay?
Where is this going to be that we can go look for our signatures?
Well, when they tear it down in 55
Yeah.
years.
100 years from
Well,
now,
look
we're gonna say,
for
"Oh, I remember that guy." Elevator shaft.
For a restroom.
Neil Beam.
All right, we'll move on to resolutions.
Item 6A, resolution number R21-153, approving the amendment to the special event packet to clarify the liability insurance requirements.
Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution number R21-153 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution R153. Any discussion?
For benefit of the people watching, could you explain very briefly what this does and
Yeah.
who it affects?
Yeah, absolutely. So, anybody who currently wants to be part of an event or host an event on public property, so the majority of those events would happen in Frankfurt Square today, the event sponsor has to get insurance, and then any vendor who is selling goods or services, including food or really anything that our insurance carrier saw liability in, was previously required to get a separate insurance policy for the event and list the city as additional insured. Well, I've been working with our new property and casualty carrier and researching what other communities our size that also have LARM are doing. And we were not alone in those requirements, but there's also communities like Norfolk has recently changed their requirements to similar to what we're doing. So just the event sponsor has to get the insurance and has to describe the activities that will be happening at the event, but each vendor doesn't have to get the insurance as well. So for example, I went to an event in Norfolk with friends in like August, and there was food trucks and there was like art dealers and craft things, and there was a band and a beer garden and all these things. And in Norfolk, the event sponsor had to get one insurance policy and list all of that stuff and provide that to the city. If that event would happen in Columbus, all of those vendors would have had to get a policy. So it really limits their ability to participate in events on city property, which is not ever what we wanted to do, but our insurance carrier was telling us we kind of had to do that to limit our liability and our exposure. So we're changing this requirement. We've discussed it at length with LARM, and believe that with our insurance today we'll be fine. If there's a claim and we're named in a claim, we'll still have to defend ourselves, but 99.9% of the time we won't be liable because, as we all know, we maintain public spaces, so it's kind of a play at your own risk sort of situation, but we do always have to defend ourselves if we're named in a claim. So that's why we're recommending this change. We're trying to make a lot of changes and adjustments to just make sure we're not causing events, being a barrier to events and activities in public spaces. So that's really, we're just trying to make some positive changes to encourage more good activity in our public spaces.
And this has really been a big thing because we have caught so much heck from many, many vendors about what we wouldn't let them do, not recognizing that we were following the direction of our insurance carrier. And we couldn't take the liability of going against what our carrier said we could do. Whether vendors thought it made sense or not, we couldn't risk what our taxpayers and put them at risk. So we caught a lot of flack about being the big old meanie because this is what we were required to do. So I give staff credit for doing the research, coming together with, looking into what could we do to make this more palatable so that we can really try to encourage things. Because as Tara said, never has it been that we didn't want to do things. It was we were told we couldn't under the requirements that we had within our policy. So this just makes it more advantageous for people to be able to do things, and I think it will open up more opportunities for people.
Right.
For example, Frankfurt Square, the farmers market at Frankfurt Square. Did we require individual vendors at the farmers market?
If they were selling a good,
And will this change?
only the one person who heads up the farmers market will have to have one insurance
Who is that?
certification.
Who is that individual or
Shirley-
entity?
Market 23, Shirley Inquist.
Linquist.
So at any rate, the individual vendors will not have to,
Right. Or like Columbus Days, just the chamber will have to get a policy and list all the activities that will go on rather than all the food trucks and service providers. So, and we're hoping, we did the entertainment district things, we've lifted the prohibition in Frankfurt Square and other public spaces and added that permit process to allow other activities in the park. So this kind of goes along with that. But in the same respect, if there is sale of alcohol, they have to get insurance. That vendor has to get insurance. There's certain circumstances where even so if you're bringing a bounce house, if you're selling alcohol, if you want to bring a petting zoo, there are certain things that are excluded from our insurance that they have to provide city coverage, city liability coverage for. So those things do apply. But the mass majority of vendors wouldn't have to get additional.
This specifically addresses concerns that have been raised to me about the individual vendors at Frankfurt Square, for example, having to provide insurance.
Well, that's why we did it.
And it sounds like a heck of a good deal for them and for the city and for providing these kinds of events within the city.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep. And keep in mind, like Tara said, somebody's coordinating that event. They still have to do their homework. I mean, there's still insurance in place. So there is an entity that's involved. They then have to get those underneath them signed into that. So, I mean, it's not free and clear, but it's much cleaner and freer than it has been before to address exactly what you're bringing up, because we've all heard that. We've all gotten asked, how come, why? So this is just a really great way to try to do better with it, And any other comments?
Rich, did you have something?
Rich?
No, the entertainment district, you mentioned that, was on.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 16B, resolution number R21-155, approving the settlement agreements involving opioid litigation brought by the state and local political subdivisions against McKesson, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource, Bergen, and Johnson & Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of resolution number R21-155.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number R21-155. And I'm assuming to approve this would allow us to be part of any financial settlement that comes out of all of this, right?
Right.
Okay, so it's basically a formality that
Yes.
allows us to participate if monies get handed down.
It allows me to go in and fill out all the forms and get our direct share and then apply for other funds that may
All right.
become available.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 16C, resolution number R21-156, approving contract with Commonwealth Electric Company in the amount of $161,401 for 33rd Avenue Viaduct Bridge uplighting project, subject to obtaining the Union Pacific Railroad maintenance consent letter.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolution number R21-156 be adopted.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number R21-156. Any discussion?
I'd
Yes.
just like to commend Mr. Sliva and any city staff that may have helped him spearhead this, because I know it was a long endeavor and a lot of hiccups to get through.
Councilman Jablonski.
Does the railroad have a time limit on their consent?
Yeah,
We
I
actually
noticed
just-
we've had that out for a while, too.
We actually just received it today.
Oh, awesome.
Hey, that's progress.
Well, this will be a very nice
They
addition.
drop it off when they were stopping at the intersection?
Yeah, they walked, they handed it between cars.
Is this the same thing we voted on some time back for $125,000?
I think so.
I mean, it's in the budget,
Yeah,
and this
it's a
is
budget
covered.
amount.
We have, we purchased some equipment or something earlier on, but that might have been the 25th. I don't remember. We've talked about it with budget a lot, but we haven't made any official purchases. But it has been part of our budget conversations.
Okay,
We actually bid this in August, so.
This is
That might have been the
make
estimate at the time of bidding.
lighting, make it fancy and all that good stuff.
LED lighting, right?
$160,000, huh?
And to work.
Yeah, and that they light up. All right, we have a motion.
Pretty, I guess that's a lot of money as far as I'm concerned.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Ordinances on their first reading. Yep. Item 17A, ordinance number 21-40, amending section 110.041 of Chapter 110 of Title 10 of the Columbus City Code to create a solicitor's permit exemption. No motion is needed. This is a first reading, but this is another example of us trying to putting myself in the shoes of somebody who wants to do something on public property, and kind of seeing all of the requirements that were redundant or unnecessary. And another one of those is that our city code required anybody selling goods or services, even if they had gone through our special event permit process and got approval, to still go over to the police department and get a solicitor's permit for that same event. Well, that's redundant and unnecessary, and that's why the amendment is to just put an exception in that if are part of a public event on public, or a part of an event on public property, they do not have to get a solicitor's permit.
Okay, but the vacuum cleaner salesman that goes door to door, he still has to get a permit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But if he sets up a stand down at Frankfurt Square, he'd be covered.
If he's part of Columbus Days or part of,
Is there,
yeah.
is there any recognition that those people have to show where or anything like that come knocking on your door?
They still have to do that. This is only an exception if you are part of an event that's approved in a public space.
Gotcha.
So like the farmer's market vendors, they had to do the insurance and then they had to go to the police department and get a vendor permit. But now they won't have to do insurance or get a vendor permit.
Getting better.
Good.
We're getting better. All right, we have a motion and a second.
No, just
Oh, no, we
a
don't have
reading.
to. I'm sorry.
Item
I'm sorry.
17B, ordinance number 21-41, amending section 97.01 of Chapter 97 of Title 9 of the Columbus City Code to address loitering in parking lots of city parks. Some time ago, again, this is just a first reading, but some time ago, we've got lots of complaints about particularly Pawnee parking lot, the big concrete parking lot in front of the pool. So section S is all new, and it just says it shall be unlawful for any person to loiter in the parking lot of a city park for the purposes of this section, and it to remain at or be in the parking lot for more than 10 minutes when not using any of the other parks recreation facilities or amenities, and their approved intended for their intended purposes, and then or remaining at or being in the park's parking lot for more than 10 minutes at a time without going to or coming from said park's other recreational amenities, or unreasonable obstructing of or interfering with the free passage of any person or vehicle in said parking lot. So we're worried about, safety and loitering that's creating vandalism and trash. And we worked with Neil on this, and Neil also worked with the county attorney's office, who would be, enforcing these rules if we have to cite somebody for violating them. And they agree with the language as well. So again, this is first reading.
Going to post signs on the park too?
Once it's passed.
Did we have police input?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think
How are you gonna enforce it? Or what's your plan?
I guess the first thing is.
Will you come forward, Chair? Yeah, when I said we, I meant Chief Shear and I worked with Neil.
Police chief. The first thing we'll do is respond to complaints that we receive on vehicles or parties that are down there. The second thing was we'll make sure they meet all the ordinance criteria, and then we'll encourage their compliance. And if they fail to comply, I think then we'll look at more penalty type action, like citing if possible or if necessary.
So it's gonna have to take a complaint for you to show up? So
Not
if you-
necessarily,
So if
but
you're
we'll
driving by the Dairy Queen,
No,
and you
we'll
notice-
respond to a complaint. That's usually what we get is complaints that these
Right.
people are down there.
But
So I'm
if
saying we'll
you-
respond to that.
like a lot of ordinances, you gotta wait for a complaint, but this one you won't have to. If
We
you
won't
drive
have to.
by and there are
If-
6 cars out there, you
And
can,
if we notice that they're loitering and they're not participating in any park event, then we'll take action. But we have to make sure they meet all the criteria set forth in the ordinance. So that means we may have to watch them for a little bit to make sure that
Any,
they
any
meet
of
that.
any of the criteria, not all
Right.
of the criteria.
Right, any other criteria.
What about the, some of the schools, like at Shelby, there are some kids or people that
But
park.
they're parked there and they leave and they're using the parking lot for its intended purpose.
See, I
it's
think
fine.
what people want to understand, that's where, again, the public doesn't understand all the background that goes into this, is this discussion evolved out of the abuse that was taking place in Pawnee Park.
Yeah.
Specifically around the plunge and the stadium and the ball fields. So your local citizen just thinks, well, just go down and get them out of there. Well, our officers can't unless the ordinances give them the right to do it. So the right to do it is what we have in front of us, and the officers will adjust, and it will be a work in progress to get most of our citizens to recognize that things have changed and they're not to do what they were doing. So, but I mean, we want something, but sometimes it just takes a little more than just doing it. We've got to go through the process to get everything done right, including all the legal aspects of it. And this is the result we have here in front of us.
We have baseball games down there in the summertime, and there's like 25, 30 cars parked out there, and they're all, burning rubber and doing whatever out there.
So this will give us a tool to address that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 17C, ordinance number 21-42, amending section 11 or 11.01 of chapter 11 of title 1 of the Columbus City Code to redistrict the 4 wards of the city. Again, no motion is needed. This is a first reading.
Any discussion on that? If not, meeting adjourned.